There's a common whispered wisdom in rugby. Semi-finals produce the best games. Tension and drama only one notch down from suffocation. Players knowing risks may be necessary to guarantee your team a shot at glory in the big boil over next weekend, and yet aware that getting anything wrong, any one missed tackle, any one bad pass, could cost them a dance with destiny. And bloody Jesus, Nora ref from Fish and Chips, did this weekend prove beyond a doubt that fact, as Eden Park saw two of the best rugby matches of the year back to back, all beginning with England being pushed all the way by women's rugby's silent assassins, Canada, who fought their way back into the game in spectacular fashion after a flying start by the Red Roses. In a moment, I'm about to show you this photo of former Argentina prop Ronnie Roncero. Seeing the Red Roses score a try through their pack's incredible driving maul is about as surprising as this photo of former Argentina prop Ronnie Roncero is to you. But the difficult job was engineering them into the position to get that unsurprising beat going. And it all begins with England's other biggest strength, and by there I mean Helena Rowland's, kicking game. She begins here. This is simple. Allery is completely alone in the backfield, so England send a flat line that Dow can run onside to chase, and Rowland kicks down her throat, hoping she'll kick it back so her or a teammate can find some advantage now the Canadian D is misaligned. Allery obliges, but waits until the last second and sends a pretty great kick to catch Rowland off guard and allow no advantage. She can only find a splinter of grass with Tessier covers easily, and instantly she eyes up the 50-22, except the bounce is unluckily horrid for her, so Rowland sweeps in and rubs salt in the wound with her own 50-22 attempt. Grant saves it, but she's left under more pressure than a tectonic plate setting its A levels, and England get her to ground. They soak up a couple of phases, but importantly they don't contest the breakdown at all. England want 15 women on their feet ready to pressurise Grant's clearance, which Infante does in typical ref Mike friendly fashion. The kick is hurried and the ball in play. 3 minutes with a pack honeypotting to secure the ball moments earlier, meaning the chase is stagnant, it's quite slow to set, and it gives Rowland the time to give Scarriott space. She squares up Allery and offloads to Hurd, who's tackled pretty much exactly in line with where Canada kicked the thing moments earlier. England push them really hard, but the Canadian defence is typically tough as ever. Whenever you make meters, they almost always seem to make them back in the next phase or two. But luckily for England, Canada then knock it on the tackle, and one scrum penalty later, they can get their biggest weapon going. Canada generally squared up to them all extremely well, but this one's a ragtag beauty. Not their usual tightly set, perfectly crisp machine of rolling doom. It's an old school engineered thing on the angle. It's a nice variation that they've added for the semi-final. Canada target Cornborough on her side as the weak link, but as she peels off to re-enter at the back, it leaves Canada kind of not grasping anyone, and England can drive diagonally. Players looser than usual, but no less smart in their execution. Before they know it, Mothercare's most wanted Marley Packer has crossed for the opening try. England are using exactly the same strategy later on in the half. Here, they don't contest the breakdown because they know how easily they can make yardage as long as they force Grant to shank the kick. It's Infante again who really goes for Grant's right foot, and once again, after a 2-minute long passage of play, Canada's chase is good, but on the far side it's a kind of weaker, and England can spread it immediately to force the furthest out woman Corrigan into making a split-second decision. She holds off Rowland, who pops her inside out like a freshly washed sock and feeds Dow. And you know what? Nobody stops Abby Dow this close to the no one stops Abby Dow any distance from the try line. We should have learned this by now. It's a try for Abby Dow. She gets it Abby down over the line. Now, right, I'm going to mostly focus on England for the duration of this video, and I apologise for that. But it's mostly just because I want to try and discuss some themes I think may come up in the final going forward. But man alive, were Canada good, and I want a moment to just celebrate that. A full team effort with replacements injected very smartly. A drip-fed bomb squad where the backs and forwards clicked in tandem. And all the big players stood up and stood out. Emily Tatosi was as good as she's been all tournament. Sophie de Goody, utterly world class. Seemingly involved at least twice in any 10-second stretch of the match you want to pull out. This is a completely random 10 seconds. I just went into the edit bay, just pulled 10 seconds out completely at random in the game. Sophie de Goody is definitely going to be involved at least 4 times during this. I can guarantee you that for an absolute fact. Alicia Corrigan, sharp as a thing. Allery was outstanding. Tessier on top of her game. Paquin and Petier were, well, you know what? They show very well just the kind of game they were having in Canada's first try. Everything begins with Maddie Grant timing this line to absolute clockwork perfection. Worried about a carry, Infante turns her hips inwards to stop her in her tracks, but she shouldn't have been thinking about tracks really. She should have been thinking about the river Pelletier was selling her down. Packer is slightly slow to get out the scrum, focus on the scrum itself, and the 9 burns her on the outside and makes McDonald look silly, like a goose in a hat. Silly Claudia McDonald. But let's quickly just rewind, right, and have a look at the work of Paquin off the scrum. She sees the dummy come and anticipates this break, anticipates where it's going, and plots the most direct route from the scrum to the try line. She calls for the kick herself, running a straight A to B line. Not interested in running support, just getting there so that she can get an early chase on. Showing an insane turn of #7's pace for a player so in the twilight of their career to finish the try, outright outpacing Zoe Harrison, Tatiana Hurd, and basically the entire England backline. Well, yes, the entire England backline to get there. This does feel a bit like a one-off England will learn from, but God, you can bet on Kendra Cox-Edge giving this kind of dummy a go over the weekend. Canada, though, so impressive. So very, very good. But it says a lot about this test match that was only the second most insane try scored in that corner over the 80 minutes. This is brilliant defence by Scarrett, hammering out the defensive line to make a huge shot onto Goody, knowing she can slow the ball down by only releasing when the referee tells her to, which Barrett Ferron was very slow on all game, on that knees to the ground, release now thing. Infante gets away with it here, earlier in the game. It's a tactic England's backs realised as the game went on that they could start to lean on. So Scarrett eventually does it when Barrett Ferron calls for it, then flops over to make the ball presentation awkward. Menin picks up and considers the pass, but Cocaine is on her like she's... I'm not finishing the joke. The England forwards then delegate 3 different roles to allow them to steal the ball. Hunter focuses on holding up the Canadian support players. Aldcroft focuses on holding up Menin herself. And Cocaine focuses on stripping the ball, which she does. Now, Canada do end up winning the ball back almost instantly, but England's intensity does not wilt one bit. De Goody carries here, with Holtkamp as her only support player. Byrne then makes a superb chop tackle, getting her to ground before any more support can arrive. Ward spots one isolated player over the ball and chooses to strike. She blasts through the middle of the breakdown and wins a crucial turnover. Canada transition to defence and focus entirely on Hurd, the first player out from the breakdown. Infante skips Hurd and hits Harrison, the main kicker, under little pressure, who looks up and goes, actually, hold on. Claudia McDonald's sheer worth to this England team then becomes instantly evident. Her feet and underrated power running so far through Canada, it makes the Mackenzie River jealous, but her scrum-off instincts then take over the moment she spots Dow's great support line, floating it over to the arch finisher to burn Farries and somehow cross for a try that's more accurately described as a miracle. An actual proper bloody 5-point miracle. Abby Dow, behave. However, despite the considerable and almighty threat Canada posed, the risk to England's record goes up again this weekend as they look to secure their destiny against the Black Ferns of all teams. We have a final between the 2 best teams in the tournament. New Zealand are the best attacking team in the world. That's not a contentious statement or even a close run race. Sorry, Fiji. It's a completely night and day open shut case. And if England are going to stop this Black Fern side sliding into gear, there are a few things they're going to have to do differently from the rest of this tournament. I'm confident, 100% sure, there are things they've been holding back in order to play the Black Ferns. Bits of their attacking game they probably haven't shown deliberately until now. There are shape, structure bits. There's probably tons and tons of line out and more variations that they haven't shown, they haven't showcased at all. There's bound to be a whole lot that they've been deliberately holding back. But there's also quite a few things that I think they're going to have to do differently if they are going to prevent the Black Ferns from getting on top regardless. And some of that comes down to personnel. Tatiana Hurd has been brilliant with the ball in hand since bursting into this team in the final pool match, but she's still Kermit levels of green at this level, having just 5 caps before the start of this tournament, and as such, she still occasionally makes defensive reads that aren't on, such as this interception attempt against Australia that directly opens up the space for them to go and score their only try of the game. And the centre combination with her and Scarrett is working in attack, but in defence there's still some teething issues. Here, after following the play across and shutting down the space excellently, neither Scarrett or Hurd reload back to the centre channel on either of the next two phases, both clinging to this ruck, presumably assuming the other one will do it. The other one will go back and I'll stay here and watch this space here because it is important. But this leaves Lark Davis, a hooker who has been on the pitch for 36 seconds at this point, defending the entire centre channel, both 12 and 13, on her own. Unsurprisingly, a 10 as talented as Tessier can spot and exploit this and put Becca Boom exploding through. She links up with Goody and Canada can patiently but rapidly work through the phases. This is seriously impressive stuff, keeping the pace up in drives, and England can't keep up with them until they cross the line for a third try. England can't slow them down. The Hurd-Scarrett combo is still very new, and there's just odd teething problems, the kind of teething problems that you wish they could have got out the way last autumn or something, rather than now having coming up in a World Cup semi-final. And I would bet you an entire suitcase of photos of Jasmine Joyce's terrier Nala that Wayne Smith has spotted this and put demand on red alert for any moment where Scarrett and Hurd don't click, like me on photos of Jasmine Joyce's terrier Nala. The other issue for England, however, I think is far more pressing and a little bit more dramatic, because for me, it is absolutely imperative to England's chances of winning this final that Sadia Kabeya, and possibly also Poppy Cleal, start at the expense of either or both captain Sarah Hunter or World Player of the Year elect Marley Packer. Now, most of Kabeya's game speaks for itself. Her work rate is next level. She already holds the world record for most tackles in a women's international. Her link play is phenomenal. She's got a great turn of pace, but she also has one key point of difference over the players who started for England on Saturday. Now, one of the most important skills for any open side is identifying which rucks to attack and which ones to leave. This is something that made the all-time greats of this position great, and something Marley Packer is phenomenal at. Packer basically only ever enters opposition breakdowns she can turn over. She probably turns over an alarming, we're probably looking at like 80 to 90% of the rucks she seems to enter. If you watch her play for Saracens, it grants her a lot of turnovers. But if you watch her play for England, it also grants the opposition a lot of clean, quick ball. In the 65 minutes before Kabeya entered the fray and replaced Packer, Canada had 9 passages of 5 or more phases, and because neither Hunter or Packer typically enters the ruck unless there's something to gain, over all 9 of those passages, 73 rucks in total, England only successfully slowed down the ball twice. Both times, it was Zoe Aldcroft being an utter pest. Packer only attempted to slow down Canada's ball once over those passages, here coming in straight in the side and making virtually no impact whatsoever. If she had, it probably would have been a penalty against her. Slowing the ball down simply isn't part of Marley Packer's game. She's brilliant at so much else, but it's not something she really ever bothers to do. More focused on waiting for turnover opportunities or making huge shots in defence. Let's compare this to Canada's first attacking set after Kabeya and Poppy Cleal have replaced Hunter and Packer. This eventually lasts 20 phases, and England slowed Canada's ball down successfully on 7 occasions. 4 times Cleal managed to slow it by a second or two, and once just by being annoying, and once Matthews does something similar, but the stars of the show are these 2 beauties by Kabeya. She knows chances of a turnover here are slim, but she also sees the chance to make the scrum half's life hell. This slows Canada's ball by 8 whole seconds and pulls 2 extra players into the ruck. And this one is even better. She makes a brilliant hit which blows Corrigan behind her support, meaning she's isolated for a moment and the Canadian forwards need to enter round, run back in order to get in, but she then gets back up to her feet and slows it down even further, blasting them, costing Canada 12 seconds in all and totally obliterating their attacking shape. Look how disorganised it is the next phase after the damage Kabeya has done. The Black Ferns live for and live off quick ball. They are the best attacking team on the planet and they thrive off it endlessly, and Sadia Kabeya is unbelievable at slowing the ball down. Marley Packer is probably the best player on the planet currently, but the only weakness in her game, the only absence in her game, lines up just too neatly with allowing the Black Ferns to use their biggest strengths for Sam Middleton, for me, to be able to ignore it. It leaves the final in a fascinating place. England enter as favourites, but the Black Ferns will be desperate to make the game as entertaining as possible, because the more razzle-dazzle on display, the greater their chances of winning the thing. More than ever, England will be really hoping that that old adage about the semi-final being the best games, the most entertaining games they see all year, rings true. thank you for watching that. This week I have put the flu in Stacey Flula and have really been quite under the weather, so sorry this is late. Tomorrow we're going to have, if anyone watched the Canada video last week, Will, my brother, started taking on some bits and doing, voiceovers of the channel and so on. So we kind of split the semi-finals between us, and we both interjected and added bits on, our thoughts on either of them into both videos, but he's taken the France versus New Zealand one, so that should be up tomorrow, all being well. I want to try and get to Argentina, England in the men's rugby, but just didn't have the time. I'm afraid, what with being ill and spending time lying in bed and throwing up and all that. So I hope you're all well, and we're back next week for a World Cup final, and time allowing, South Africa, France as well. So much rugby, so little things that aren't rugby, but who cares, because also there's a bloody World Cup final this weekend. I'll see you soon for rugby.